Hey everybody, Matt McQueenie, Mix Minus Podcast. It is Tuesday, November 20th of the year 2018. 2 more days to Thanksgiving. I hope everybody has a great one. Thanksgiving is a great holiday. 1, because the holiday is at the front end of a 4-day weekend, which is fantastic. And 2, because you just get a 4-day weekend. How often do you get this nice 4 days to recuperate, reflect, and regenerate? You just don't get that chance. The fall is a hot time as it cools down, of course, but it is a hot time for a lot of things happening. The start of the year, start of the unofficial year, is almost the fall as kids get back to school and as work gets back in motion and going and getting towards the final quarter of the year. And then we obviously have our overall regeneration with the start of a new year, which will be 2019 now. Unbelievable that we are at this point. But I'm sorry I haven't come back to you here in a while. I've been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. I'm going to have a bunch of announcements to make, hopefully, knock on wood, in the next week or 2. I've actually been preparing a lot because next Friday, November 30th, I will be conducting a career day at one of my best friends. Tim is I give him all the credit in the world. He's done so much getting to where he is at the age of roughly 40 and coming back from the upbringing he did. Just a real inspirational, motivational kind of guy. He is the principal of a major high school here in northern New Jersey in Bergen County, and he will actually be bringing me in. He asked me to do a career day, so I got to do 3 40-minute periods about my career and my current job. And there could be some upending of that order in the near future. It's very exciting for that potential, which I hope to announce in short order, but just not at this time because things have not coalesced as of yet. But I've been kind of struggling. I wouldn't say depressed. I've been a little down with where things are. And sometimes it's been 10, 11 years where I've been. Sometimes you got to upset that apple cart a little and try to do something new and try to find a new path. And it's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean what you've been doing is bad because you're going to end up basically doing what you did, just maybe in a different location. But we will kind of see where we end up with that. But I do need to do this career day. And it's brought a lot of memories up because I've been writing my notes. I've been keeping an Evernote, and I've just been trying to kind of synthesize how I'm going to run these class periods. They're each 40 minutes. And it's funny, as a podcaster, I think of 40 minutes and I'm not that worried about it. But when you are kind of teaching a class, when you're speaking before a class, that 40 minutes feels a little long. I don't think there will be an issue. And instead of talking about project management, which is sort of what my official title is, being a project manager, I'm going to talk about it, but more in the sense of how we all have to be entrepreneurs in our life. We all need to self-start. We all need to generate ideas, and we all need to follow through on those ideas and our own projects. And I'm going to kind of try to show these kids that in the 20 short years since I've been where they sat, just the way certain decisions and certain things you do for passion can intersect and can become an asset for you as you get older. I mean, I look at podcasting, and I think back 20 years ago, I would just be in my room every day for 3 hours, 4 hours sometimes, just jamming on my guitar, just writing, recording on a 4-track, and creating music that would ultimately become the music that I would share with bands when I was brought into a band. But for 2 years, I not toiled because I loved doing it, but I would just create and create and create. And I had dozens of tapes filled with music and ideas and overlays and harmonies and just everything I could possibly come up with at any one time on all these tapes. And so the band that got me when I was a senior in high school got an entire back catalog of a lot of sounds coming with me. And we utilized that in a big way for a lot of those bands and a lot of the music we created. So it was a tremendous thing. But I loved doing it. It was a passion. And with music, it all ended up being something that worked into whatever I did. There was a point where when I was working at the company I'm in right now, that, it was probably 8-10 years ago at this point, we were working for Verizon, the telecommunications company. and we were doing a lot of the consumer-facing stuff, especially with Fios, as Fios was being introduced into new areas in the U.S., and one of the things we did was build a website and come up with an idea to create a song about a baby who thinks it needs Fios, and it's telling its parents it needs Fios. And so one day I went home, I told my office I'll come up with a jingle, and I stayed home in my apartment in Edgewater the whole day. I don't think I ever showered till the end. I was wearing a basketball jersey and boxers, and I just jammed and I created a song. It had reggae, it had pop, and it was pretty good, and they loved it. It didn't end up seeing the light of day because the campaign itself didn't go forward, but I remember creating that and thinking if I did not toil in my bedroom all those years, I would not have the ability to just come out here and write a song in a minute. I wrote it pretty quickly, and we had the lyrics because we had a whole group of people sit in a conference room and come up with these funny lyrics, and so it was a fun time. Maybe I'll put that song at the front of this episode so people can kind of hear what that sounds like. Actually, you know what? I'll put the song right here.
Yo, when I was just a twinkle in my daddy's eye, I knew even then cable would not fly. I demanded high def for my sonogram, cause my name is Baby Fios, that's who I am. I'm getting Fios on my TV. I'm getting Fios, getting down with that DCP. Cut the cable, cut the cord, with Fios is fine. You cut the cable, cut the cord, just like daddy cut mine. When it comes to all the services, yeah, Fios has got 'em. I'm speaking the truth, doc, don't slap my bottom. Let's go, mama, make your decision. It can't be more painful than my circumcision. I told the other babies in the nursery that cable is whack, you need FTTP. That's fiber to the premises, no need to keep it quiet. Check my diaper, you'll see I got fiber in my diet. Fiber optics, you know, it's better than copper. The picture on your TV is a real showstopper. Rising goes the last mile, runs the fiber to your stoop. Cable wires are a mess, like my morning poop. I'm getting Fios on my TV. I'm getting Fios, getting down with FTTP. Cut the cable, cut the cord, with Fios is fine. You cut the cable, cut the cord, just like daddy cut mine. Cable services ain't up to par. They can't even give me multi-room DVR. I record it in the nursery and watch it in the playpen. I pause it, jump in my crib and turn it on again. With your DVR, mama stuck on the couch. Can't watch her shows throughout the house. Gotta sit right there in the living room. Can't go to the kitchen and get my baby food. I'm getting Fios on my TV. I'm getting Fios, getting down with FTTP. Cut the cable, cut the cord, the Fios is fine. You cut the cable, cut the cord, just like daddy cut mine. With thousands of showings on demand, I watch my movies wherever I can. I'm up for my feedings in the middle of the night. I grab myself a bottle or give mama a bite. Just out of theaters on pay-per-view, all lined up in my Fios queue. WrestleMania, boxing, I can see all events. Why wouldn't I switch? It's common sense. I'm getting Fios on my TV. I'm getting Fios, getting down with FTTP. Cut the cable, cut the cord, the Fios is fine. You cut the cable, cut the cord, just like daddy cut mine. It's so good, the picture and the sound. Feels like I'm there in the surround. I'm on the street with the Sesame crew, or chilling with my homies and a dog named Blue. Rockabye baby on the treetop. 45 music channels make my cradle rock. When the barrel breaks and the cable falls, the Fios HD lined up will rock you all. I'm getting Fios on my TV. I'm getting Fios, getting down with FTTP. Cut the cable, cut the cord, the Fios is fine. You cut the cable, cut the cord, just like daddy cut mine. I'm getting wired from my TV, but I won't stop yet. I'm gonna add Fios to phone and internet. I may be just a baby, don't make no fuss. Our house is connected like the wheels on the bus. When people get my cancellation, starts calling me. My Fios bundle getting files on my TV. I'm getting files, getting down with FTTP. Cut the cable, cut the cord, the files are fine. You cut the cable, cut the cord, just like daddy cut mine. You're getting cut cable, now you got the facts. Got the files at my house and I ain't going back. You're getting cut cable, gotta go take my nap. Help out, baby, files, my spread in my rap.
So it was pretty funny, right? So I came up with that on my little whatever recording software I was using at the time on my computer. And I wrote it and jammed it out. The song actually was written pretty easily. It's the same chord progression, the whole song, just with a different interpretation between the chorus and the verses. But that was a really fun song to come up with. So all those things connect. And then up to this day, when I've done podcasting came second nature to me. Not necessarily the speaking into the microphone, but the production part, because I learned it all when I was recording music. And so when I did that part, there was nothing I was worrying about. I understood sound levels and equalization and effects and just sort of the way a mixing board works. It was all second nature to me because of all that work I put in. So everything you do, go for your passions, and everything you do will work itself out somehow. Whether it's just for a hobby that keeps you happy in your off time, or whether there's a way to integrate it into your day job. I mean, one of the big things in this career day presentation that I've been kind of thinking about is this idea that what you wake up in the morning wanting to do is what you should do with your life. And it's hard because a lot of us don't have that opportunity. A lot of us have a really good, secure, comfortable job, but it's not necessarily our passion, but it pays us well. It gives us stability. It gives us an income that can help us cover the expenses of our family and our homes and our cars. And so you do it and you find a way to kind of treat it like a job, like your day job. But then you come home and you do the things you want to do. Maybe it's sports, maybe it's television, media, reading, playing the guitar, whatever the case is. Smoking cigars, drinking beers, whatever that is, whatever your passion is. But I remember Barry Bonds one time saying, when I was reading a profile about him, who knew that it would end up being a dubious profile for Muscle and Fitness magazine, but I remember him saying, I'll never forget it, I wake up in the morning wanting to train and lift and exercise. That's the thing he wanted to do, and it was his organizing principle. And he built quite a body for a time, whether that was helped by performance-enhancing drugs or not. He was still wanting to do it. He still had the passion to do it. And I've always remembered that quote. And throughout my life, I've had a lot of things that I wake up in the morning wanting to do. And you should have a lot of things. You should have varied interests through your life. You should have those interests become front and center at certain times. You should have them move to the side and new ones come. It's a normal progression of life. But you wake up wanting to do it. And so I was sort of going through this presentation, kind of talking about that always take stock every so often when you wake up. What do I want to do right now? Now for me, I have to go take care of my son, which I love him, and it's my job, so you can't really do that. But a lot of times I wake up and I say, I want to be podcasting. I want to drink coffee. I want to read up for a couple hours, get my sports updates, get my media updates, and then around 10, 11, noontime, I want to put a podcast together. That would be a perfect day for me. That's not going to pay my bills. It's not going to allow me to live in the home I do and have the expenses I do. So I make concessions and I try to bring it into my day job, which I have been able to do. Built a studio here. We've had a handful of clients, including the now governor of New Jersey before he was the governor. And you're able to do something with it. But you want to wake up. The thing you want to do when you wake up, you want as much as possible for that to be integrated into your life. Now, if you want to get up and do nothing and drink beer and sit on the couch, I can't help you there. It can't be self-harming. It can't be something that is not bringing productivity to life. But the productive things you want to do when you get up, even if that's lifting weights and training and running, you should try to integrate that as much as possible, because when the gap between what you want to do when you wake up and what you actually do gets too wide, there's going to be a lot of unhappiness. Back to 2 years ago, Donald Trump was elected. This is a crazy little segue, but a lot of people were happy. There was there was a large base that was very happy that Donald Trump won. He was their sort of avatar to be the bull in the china shop and kind of break convention, which he has done. But there was a large contingent as well, and I put myself in that camp, who did not want him to win, who felt terrible when he did, who felt like it was a morning, MOURNING, in America. That next morning when I woke up and you didn't know how you were going to move forward, it felt like your country was occupied in some ways. A lot of what he's done over the 2 years has not dispelled a lot of those notions. It's just been one thing that you try to bear as well as you can, and obviously as one citizen, there's not a ton you can do about it, but you can stay up to date. You can follow the proceedings of what's happening, and you can do your best on voting day to change those numbers. But it was kind of something that was not the greatest thing going on for a couple of years. Just didn't feel right. And the last episode I did, I talked about the midterms and how they were important, not because one side was winning over another, but because we needed a check. We needed a check and balance on our federal government, on the presidency, and that was not in place before, when the Republican Party had full control of all of the branches of government. And now there is a check. The Democrats took the House. They did lose some footing in the Senate, but there was a couple there. It wasn't going to change. Ever since the filibuster left the stage as an important factor where you needed 60 votes to get anything done. Now that it's just a straight majority, that wasn't going to flip that much anyway, as it is. But the House flipping is big because it gives some teeth to the ability to check the president, and he does need to be checked. Whether you like him or not, he is wildly erratic in many ways. He's not very contemplative. He's not somebody who has policy positions that are fixed in any way. There's a lot of narcissism. There's a lot of it's my way or the highway, and what's good for me is what's good for the country. And that is not something I believe in. I don't think it's that way. I think there's got to be some consensus, and maybe the president is the decider, but it's not been great. But I do want to say there was a lot of people on that election night who were taking what was happening as almost a loss. We thought the House was going to flip. We didn't think the Senate was going to flip, and that was kind of where it is. But I think a lot of people got very involved in politics after Trump. As an anti-force as well, as the Democrat, as the progressive. They got involved against Trump. He was a lightning rod, a catalyst to them getting hardcore into it, a lot of women getting into it, which has been great. There's been a lot of kind of protests, a lot of movements, a lot of marches. It's been something that's been great. But I think a lot of the people who came in after Trump had a false notion that by everyone coming in, it meant that things were going to flip. It's not the way it works. It's not the way our country works. Obviously, the House is based on is more something that's based on population density. The Senate is based on land. There's 2 senators for every state. So a lot of the states that don't have a lot of population have a big advantage there because smaller, sparsely populated places tend to be a little more conservative and will vote for a conservative. And so land is really voting there, whereas population is voting in the House. So we saw the House flip because the population is mostly not happy with what they're seeing from Donald Trump. But there was a time that it didn't even look like that was going to happen. So sometimes we need to remember that progress is an evolution. It can be slow, but it does end up in a place that is potentially positive for those who do want to check here. There's something I read in The Economist every year. It's called The World In, and if it's 2018, it's the end of 2018, it'll say the world in 2019, and it predicts what's going to happen in the next year. Obviously, it can't predict the future. It would make a lot more money, and The Economist does very well, but it predicts as best it can what is going to happen in the coming year. And I remembered this vividly on the night of on election night when the House flipped. I remembered reading this piece at the end of 2018 about what was going to happen in the midterms. And I remember at that time reading it and being a little depressed because it didn't seem like the numbers were going to add up to the Democrats taking the House. So I want to take that back as a frame of reference just so we can know where we are now, where the House flipped. So this article was called How the Electoral Map Will Look After the Midterm Elections. And so I'm just going to read a little part for it, just so we can all understand how far things have come and how much the referendum on the president really was something that, as much as he said he won, he did not win. And pretty emphatically, he was told that the way he does things are not the way the country as a whole in large numbers wanted. So I'll jump right in where I think it's a good place to start. The starting point for predicting the results of House elections is the generic congressional ballot, a question frequently asked by pollsters. Respondents simply name the party for which they plan to vote. This has a stunningly accurate record at forecasting the overall national vote for the chamber. Over the 38 congressional elections since 1942, a simple statistical prediction based on the final polling average and adjusted for whether the cycle was a midterm or a presidential year has missed the target by an average of just 1.3 percentage points. So this generic ballot ends up being pretty correct on what's going to happen. That was me talking. Now back to the article. The generic ballot also tends to stabilize fairly early in an election cycle and is particularly informative when combined with data on presidential popularity, the economy, and voters' loyalty to their preferred political party. Using a broader model based on all these factors, the Democrats' current advantage corresponds to a victory by 5 or 6 percentage points come November 2018. Even that comfortable margin would probably not be sufficient to flip either chamber of Congress. In the Senate, the Democrats face a brutal map. Of the 33 senators up for re-election, 25 are Democrats or independents who caucus with them, many of them in deep red states. A blue wave might enable all 25 to hold on, as well as knocking off vulnerable Republican incumbents in Nevada and Arizona, which actually I believe did happen, right? Yet that would still leave the GOP with 50 seats, enough to maintain control thanks to the tie-breaking vote of Mike Pence, the vice president. To wrest away the upper chamber, Democrats will also have to win a seat held by a Republican in a solid red state. The leading candidates are probably Tennessee, where Bob Corker is retiring, or Texas, where the ultra-conservative Ted Cruz faces a strong challenger in Beto O'Rourke. But punters, which in British, as the economist says, British punters mean bettors or predictors, but punters on the predicted betting market give Republicans a nearly 80% chance of holding them. In the House, all 435 seats are up for grabs, and Democrats have to win back 24 of them to regain control. Side note, I believe they're up to 36 now. Yet to do so, they need to overcome both gerrymandering, which favors Republicans, and the tendency of Democratic voters to cluster in liberal cities, giving them lopsided margins in those districts. So Democrats may need to win the national vote by a whopping 7 points. I believe they did do that. A margin consistent with historic landslides in 94, 2006, 2008, and 2010, just to eke out a victory by a single seat. So you go back to that, it didn't look good. And look how much changed. So things can change. Do not be discouraged. All those folks who came out with Trump as a catalyst, as an anti-catalyst for them, all those who came out, you've done good work. You've changed something that was predicted to not change. Do not be discouraged because you didn't completely win. Things happen. And I was I was bolstered by the election night and the after effects of the past couple of weeks, because it's now been 2 weeks as of today. I was bolstered by it. It made me feel a little better, and it surely made me feel like, again, there is a check in place. Doesn't mean you go crazy with impeachment. Now, it is funny because a lot of the Republicans from the 94 time who won and took the House and then went to impeach Clinton, they keep saying, don't do that. That was a mistake for us. And I keep thinking to myself, sure, there was things found with Clinton, obviously, but that impeachment was purely political. That was a tactic. I just read a great profile on Newt Gingrich in The Atlantic. That was purely a tactic to try to unseat a president. This is not a tactic. My gut says impeach if there's a chance to impeach. Impeach if you find a lot of stuff that is just so overwhelming that you got to do it. Donald Trump is not Bill Clinton, no matter how much you want to make them equal in your mind to make you feel good. Just don't do that. Just follow it where the evidence takes you, and then allow these two houses of Congress to figure it out from there. And let us get some information so we know what's going on here. Don't keep it hidden. Protect Mueller. Do all those things you can do. because Donald Trump is very preoccupied with this thing, which means he thinks that there might be some meat on those bones. So I was happy with that. But I did remember that article, and I wanted to kind of bring that up to just remind us where we are right now and how things are playing out. So this weekend, right after Thanksgiving, my wife and I are going to go into New York City. We like to go away towards the end of the year during our honeymoon, which is New Year's Eve. And that's always a fun trip. But she's going to be very pregnant by that point. So we will go there. But I wanted to do something a little earlier. And we're going to do that again this coming Saturday here in November. We're going to go into New York City, and we're going to do something weird. A lot of people laugh when I tell them what we're going to do, but the basis of our trip is going to be going in on Saturday, staying overnight in Chelsea at a hotel there, getting a nice steak dinner at the Homestead, the old Homestead Steakhouse. There's one in AC I've been to. Really nice place, very expensive, but it is what it is. Maybe the things I'm going to announce in the coming weeks will help me not feel as bad about nights like that. And we're going to do our normal stuff. We like to head in to a place, get in around check-in, maybe go for a nice coffee, go for a walk. It'll be fun in New York. It'll be fun to be native New Yorkers for a night, kind of live in the city, sleep in the city, wake up there. But what we're really going to do is the next morning, we are going to go to Peloton Studios, which is a couple blocks from the hotel I got. And we're actually going to take an in-person class, a spin class there, which will be on video. Because I've talked in the past, the Peloton bike is this on-demand spin class that you have a big tablet on these spin bikes, and this tablet you can pick from any on-demand class that's happening in the actual class in Chelsea, and you can also click to go live with a class. So if there's a class going at 9 and you happen to be on your bike around 9, you can actually go on that class. And there's a leaderboard because you log in. It's almost like its own social network. People will high five. You can kind of see where you are in the rankings, both in the live class, or you could just click to say right here who's in it right now in the on-demand class. It's a really cool thing, and my wife loves it. In the nearly 4 years we've had it, might be even a little over 4 years, because I think we got it when my son was in utero, and he just turned 4 last week. Since we've had it, my wife has done like 280 spins, 45-minute classes basically. She's done about 280 since we've had it. I've done about 25. Now, I have tried to commit myself to doing it once a week. I even did it today on a Tuesday because I want to get prepared for this event on Sunday. Almost like Creed. Creed 2 is coming out right on Thanksgiving as well. That'll be cool. But we're going to do it. We're going to go in at 9, go into the class, and then it's something we could have done. It's almost like going to a Broadway show for us, right? I mean, she loves these teachers. These teachers. You come to get, you come to understand their lives. You follow them on Instagram. She does. I don't do it as much. But it's its own little social network. It's its own little group. I wouldn't say support group, but support in a good way, bolster group. And so we're going to go in there with the main plan of doing that 9 a.m. class on Sunday. So for anybody who has a Peloton, come on in and you can maybe see us in the audience there. Well, it's not an audience. We're actually biking, and we're seat 20 and 21, I believe. So it's right in front, maybe a row behind, or maybe a second row on the class part. So that's going to be cool. So we're going to end up doing that. It's going to be a nice night leading up to it. And we'll figure our way. We'll have a nice morning there, maybe a brunch, and then head on back home. We'll be gone about 24 hours. But nice to go into New York City, experience that life a little bit. I don't think I've slept over in New York City since I lived there for college. I mean, maybe a person here or there if I've kind of slept on someone's floor, but I don't even think so. I think it's been that many years. I was always on the Jersey side, even when I lived by there. It was Edgewater, it was Hoboken. So it'll be kind of cool to be down there in Chelsea. Now, a lot's changed. It's a lot of building. It's a lot of big major companies. It loses a lot of the small-time charm. I was actually listening to Mark Maron's interview with Kenneth Lonergan, the director. He's a Broadway director, does a lot of plays, but he also does movies. Most notably, in the last couple of years, he did Manchester by the Sea. What a sad movie. That was a great movie. I can't watch it again because of the one scene, which I will, or which what I'm talking about if you saw it. But he's lived in New York his whole life, and he was talking to Mark, who lived in New York for a time when it was more of a kind of a grittier place, the New York we come to think of from the 70s and 80s, and had some charm. It had some individual aspects to it. Now it's very homogenized, very big, a lot of expensive places to live, a lot of expensive businesses that are the same on every street. But I was listening to that interview today, hearing somebody talk about that in Lonergan. It's sad because the New York we knew is gone. There's none of that punk scene New York anymore, like the Lower East Side, Alphabet City. It was a gritty place, and it's just not that anymore. It's even less gritty than when I went to college there in the early 2000s. But that said, I don't have to get into all those existential things. We're going to have a nice night there, and then we're going to go to Peloton the next morning. Look, Peloton's a cool idea. It's a forward-thinking, innovative idea. You set up a studio, and then you build a subscription model out of it so that everybody around the world can log in and bike together. I always love looking at that leaderboard and seeing, oh, this person's in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, this person's in the Poconos, this person's in the middle of Nevada, this person's in Montana. It's kind of cool that anybody with an internet connection, a good internet connection, can put that bike into their home, next to their bed, in their basement, in their living room, and they can lock in with 1,000, 2,000 other people on demand in real time and just bike. It's kind of a cool thing. So that's going to be what we're going to do. The other thing I wanted to give an update on, because it's been a long time, is a little bit of football here. So up until this last week, week 11, I was doing really well with my picks. I had gone in the 3 weeks before week 11, I went 25-8. I went 8-3, 9-2, and 8-3. Really well with my picks against the spread in the league I'm in. I got all the way up to third place after last week. And the overall winner in this league, I think, wins over $1,000. So that's a nice thing. This week, I got kind of slammed. I really did. It was a weird week. I didn't feel as good about the week as I did on the previous weeks. Obviously, I felt like I was sort of almost at the blackjack table, and I had a good run, but you got nowhere else to go, so you just kind of stay at the table, even though you don't feel like you have that momentum with you anymore. And with football, the weeks are coming, and they're coming upon you. Now we got Thanksgiving, so we got 3 games on Thanksgiving. It's going to have to be picked by tomorrow, basically, or maybe Thursday morning if you're going to pick those games. And you mostly have to pick one of them, right? Because you'll lose games to pick when you have to pick 11, including Monday night. So you got to get into that. But this week I did not feel good about the matchups. And so let's kind of go through that a little bit here. Let's get my week here. So week 11, and then let's get to my thing here. Now I'm in like 8th place, but I went with my top pick, Indy. That one ended up being really good because Indy was a 2.5 point favorite, and they won by 28 points over Tennessee. I felt good. I think Indy's rising. They're 5-5. They might be on a playoff run here. Frank Reich might be missing, or Philadelphia might find themselves that they're really missing Frank Reich there as they struggle, because that Indy winning this much, and then New Orleans winning 48-7 over Philadelphia on the flip side. Those were really the 2 blowouts. When you take out those 2 games, this was the hard part with the football this week. You can pick. I went 3-8. You can pick, and you can feel like you're a total waste of space, like you're a terrible picker. How do I watch this and I'm this wrong? But if you take out those 2 blowouts and you look at the other, how many games was it? I think it was 11 games. The other 11 games were a margin of just 30 points in total. The other 11 games, a lot of 1-point games, 2-point games, 3-point games, which comes out to an average of 2.7 points margin between the teams. That's really small. That's really tight. No matter what betting line you're talking about, it's a tough one to pick against. So Indianapolis was my top pick. That went well. Pittsburgh was my second pick. They were down like 13-0 in the third quarter. So it looked like it was going to go real bad because Jacksonville was getting 5.5 points. And Pittsburgh somehow came all the way back and ended up winning just by 4. So they did win, but I didn't win the spread there. Cincinnati was my lowest pick. And when I looked at that game, they lost by 3. And I'm like, oh, man, who cares? This shows you this week. I won that pick because they lost by 3 and Baltimore had to win by 3.5. So on the one that I won there, I didn't even think I was winning. Atlanta, that's a hard team to pick with now. They were supposed to be a 3.5 point favorite, and they lost by 3 to Dallas. Atlanta has nothing going for them this year. It just looks like one of those years where everything falls apart. Houston, they did win by 2, and somehow they're 7-4 at this, or 7-3 at this point. But Washington got 2.5 points. Alex Smith is gone after that leg break on the same day, 33 years to the day that Joe Theismann broke his leg in a similar fashion. But Washington was a 2.5 point. They got 2.5 points, and Houston only won by 2. So I lost that one, even though Houston won. If we're talking winners and losers, I did pretty decent. Detroit was a 10 point pick for me, and I picked Carolina. Detroit got 3.5 points. And Carolina got all the way back to tie, and then they tried to go for 2 to win. So I would have lost that bet even if they scored that 2 point, that 2 point instead of the point after 2 point conversion. Sorry. So that was a tough one. Like, you're almost rooting at that point for Carolina to tie it, for Detroit not to score, and then for them to go to the overtime, and then Carolina to score a touchdown so you could cover. The Giants, I did pick the Giants. They were what were they here? They were a minus half point favorite to win. So in that one, that's basically a pick 'em because there's no way to get a 0.5 here. So I thought the Giants would win. They had a bigger lead than they ended up with, but they did win by 3. So now they're 3-7. A lot of people are dreaming a little big. I didn't even touch the Oakland-Arizona game. The Los Angeles Chargers killed me. Every time you pick with them or against them, they just burn you. They're a double-edged sword with a sharp edge on both ends. They were a 7.5 point favorite, and Denver somehow beat them by 1, 23-22. Talked about New Orleans. I had Philadelphia. I thought that they could breach or bridge the 7.5 points that New Orleans was had to win by, but New Orleans did much better than that. I had Minnesota. Chicago was a 2.5 point favorite, and they won by 5. And you're sitting there wondering if Kirk Cousins really is what we thought he was. Then I had the Rams were 2.5 point favorite in one of the all-time games I've ever seen in a regular season. The Rams won 54-51, just covering. And I picked Kansas City. Kansas City was winning till the end. Amazing thing with that game. How many points were scored, and yet how many points were scored from the defense? The Ekuba or whatever, he had 2 touchdowns. When do you ever see a linebacker score 2 touchdowns in a game? One on an interception, one on a fumble recovery made possible by Aaron Donald. And then how about the fact that Pat Mahomes threw 6 touchdowns, but had 5 turnovers? He had 3 interceptions. Now, 2 of them were at the end when he was trying to get the team down the field to win. So that those 2 are a little touch and go, but hey, it's 3, and then it's 2 fumbles. Give up 2 fumbles, and 2 of those turnovers went for touchdowns immediately. That's crazy. And for him to still be in the game, winning in the final couple minutes is unbelievable. I mean, I always say, if you earn big, you can spend big. I mean, he's out earning what he needs to make a lot of mistakes and to buy a lot of Teslas. He really can do that. So that was a tough week at 3-8, but a lot of it was so close to the vest. Again, 11 games, an average of 2.7 points difference between the 2 teams. That is a finite and small point differential. Week 12, this is exciting as we get into our Thanksgiving holidays here. It's another week where I feel like I'm staying at the blackjack table a little too long, but you have to pick, because if you don't pick, you lose all of them. So we're going to look here on Thanksgiving. We got 3 games. We have Detroit getting 4.5 points against Chicago. I would almost pick Detroit. Look, they're keeping it kind of close. They have talent, and they're at home on a short week at 12:30 in the afternoon start. So Chicago had a good win against Minnesota. They rested and recuperated, and they really got like 2 days before they're then traveling. I know it's not a long trip, but I feel like Detroit getting 4.5 points, that they could even lose by 3 and you're still covered there. I think Detroit's scrappy. They got a good quarterback, and they got some playmakers at certain places, and they're home, and it's Thanksgiving. That feels to me like a lot of points to give a home team with someone traveling to them on a short week. Next up, you got Dallas, a 7.5-point favorite over Washington. This is because Colt McCoy is the starting quarterback. But hey, Colt McCoy is a Texas kid. Maybe he's coming back in. Maybe that'll be the narrative when you're watching the game on Turkey Day, the 4:30 start, really the post-dessert point of the game. It's when you're really kind of passing out from that tryptophan on the turkey. But a 7.5-point favorite, that feels like a lot to give Dallas. I think Washington's got some skilled players around. It's got some pride. I know they're traveling again on a short week as well. But they got Adrian Peterson. They got some players. Feels like a lot of points to give us a 5-5 team in the Cowboys. Atlanta and New Orleans. 13.5 points to New Orleans. And Atlanta's almost like one of these teams they're almost like the Chargers in that you don't know if you could pick for or against. I feel like Atlanta would keep this within 13.5 points. It is the night game, so you get a little extra time with the travel. It's not a terrible travel schedule from Atlanta to New Orleans. 13.5 points is a lot, though. I know New Orleans can run the score up, and they have done so, but Atlanta has a lot of skilled players, and they have a lot of ability on offense to move it. And look, they're in a dome again, too, just like home. There's no place like dome. They could really, I'm not saying they could win it, but they could keep it within that win, within the point total there. Then we move to Sunday, Seattle, Carolina, sort of a 5-6 seed type of game here, the type of teams who might be in the playoffs to round out those playoffs. Carolina's a 3.5-point favorite. Seattle's scrappy, though, but it's tough. It's tough going west to east, especially from as far away as the Pacific Northwest. But Carolina's been like almost the cardiac Carolinas. They always seem to be coming back, which is a nice hallmark of a team. But when they have to win by that many points, it feels tough because, again, a field goal win falls under that point total. So you pick Seattle, but then again, Seattle traveling all that way, things can wear off pretty quick. That's going to be a hard one. Philadelphia is getting 6.5 points over the Giants at home in Philly. I would almost pick the Giants. They have a little bit of momentum. They beat a couple of bad teams, I know, but momentum is an important factor. They got a lot of offensive players. Maybe they've caught a little bit of the wind behind their sails with their offense. They felt good. They've put up points. Philadelphia could probably win, but the Giants should fall under that cover. Wow, Baltimore 10.5-point favorite over Oakland. Oh man, that's hard. Is Lamar Jackson starting? I don't know, but 10.5 points is a lot, no matter how you cut it. Oakland stinks though, and they are traveling across the country. That feels like a stay away. The Jets are getting 9.5 points at home for New England. I don't know if Darnold's going to be back. New England's looking to really come off the bye week and lay something down here. But I don't even know if they have to win by 10 in their minds to feel good. They just got to get some wins on the board. That kind of feels like a stay away too. If I had to pick it, I'd probably pick the Jets at one of my lower point totals. It's not one of my highest confidence ones. Indy, 9.5-point favorite at home over Miami. Whew, that's a lot of points. I love what Indy's doing. I see them winning, but winning by 10? That's a hard one. But then I hate when I love a team and I have to pick the other team for the cover. Just don't like that as much. But Indy, that feels like a lot of points. Cincinnati, the Battle of Ohio. Cincinnati hosting Cleveland. Cincinnati's a 3.5-point favorite. Whew, another tough one. Cincinnati's 5-5. I could see them winning this game. They now have Hugh Jackson on their sideline just for very games like this to kind of tell Cincinnati everything that Cleveland was doing this year behind the scenes. Cincinnati will probably cover because they'll have so much intel from Hugh Jackson, or maybe they won't based on what we saw in Hard Knocks in terms of how he goes about his day. Hard Knocks could have made him look like that too, but I'd probably pick Cincy on the over for that reason. Tampa Bay is a 3.5-point favorite over San Francisco. Oof, that's a tough one because who cares? It's a who cares game. I'd probably pick Tampa Bay, although San Francisco's always scrappy when you don't expect them to be. That's a long travel day too, though, so it's a tough one. Jacksonville at Buffalo, another Buffalo's getting 3.5 points. Don't know how the weather is going to be at this point. That's a really who cares type of game. If I had to pick, I'd probably pick Jacksonville. Next up, we got the Chargers, a 12.5 point favorite over Arizona. I don't want to touch the Chargers, but they are at home. This is probably the game where they win by 30. When they were supposed to do that last week, they didn't have to win by 30, but they only had to win by 7.5, and they didn't do that. Next up, a pretty good game here. Pittsburgh going into Denver. Denver is getting 3.5 points. Denver's tough. They could lose by 3 in this game, and again, they still cover. I would probably almost pick Denver because I think Pittsburgh's got enough wins in the tank here that they're not going to be needing this one as much as you'd think. And Denver had a tough win in LA. Not saying Denver would win, but I think it could be like a 3-point game maybe. So I would probably pick them with the points. Then we get to Sunday night, Green Bay at Minnesota. Minnesota, 3.5 point favorite. It's hard to pick with Green Bay. They just seem so inconsistent. Now, they will have had a good amount of time here. Not a bye week, but they played on Thursday. So then it's sort of a week and a half type of deal. But Minnesota is going to need to win this one. So Minnesota probably wins, but Aaron Rodgers can almost keep it within 3. So I would probably pick Green Bay on that one. And then the Monday night, after this last Monday night, how good that game was. Now we have Tennessee going into Houston. Houston's a 6.5 point favorite. Tennessee's a weird wax and wane team. I could see them stay within the points after this game. They really killed the Patriots. They get killed by the Colts. Now they go into Houston and they probably could keep it close. They could probably win by 1 even. Houston's got a lot of wins here, 7 in a row. It's almost that point where they could lose one. But Tennessee, I feel like, could keep it within the margin of need here for victory. And it'll probably be something because I always have to pick the points total here. It'll probably be like 21-17, 22-21, one of these like low 20s, high teens type of deals in a game. So that's where we are, my friends. It was good catching up with you, and I do hope to have some info coming in the future here. Other thing I want to say, that sponsor I have, the group I work with, Big League Pillows at bigleaguepillows.com. It's coming up on Thanksgiving. These Big League Pillows have really started to sell, especially through the Amazon channel, but through the main channel as well. These are like $35 pillows. They are perfect gifts for kids because they're compact, they're unique, they're customized, and they're not that hard to get out the door. You'll get them in a couple days, and you can get them for a bunch of kids, and it's not going to necessarily break the bank. And if you use the promo code MIX-, I'll get you free shipping. So why don't you go do that at bigleaguepillows.com, and we'll take it from there. We're looking towards a big Black Friday here. I think we're going to give 10% off and free shipping on that day if you want to wait for that. But otherwise, use MIX-. If you get in before Black Friday, you'll probably get those pillows a lot quicker because if a lot of people buy on Black Friday, it's going to be a backlog. Now, it's okay because there's still some time before Christmas, but I also got my early Christmas present. I got the new iPad Pro. Man, this device is beautiful. I got the 11-inch one because the 12.9 was just enormous. 11 is big, but it's kind of maneuverable. You can hold it well. It is an awesome little device. I just love it. The screen is beautiful. It's all screen. There's no home button. It's got Face ID. I've been really loving it. Been using it a lot to watch stuff consume. I still got to get the keyboard case, but thank you, Mom, for my early Christmas present. It's been great. So we'll check in with you probably in a couple of days, my friends. I'll talk to you later. Over and out. Mix Minus Podcast. Matt McQueenie.